What we're going to be going through today is vibe coding. I'm going to be doing a deeper dive on Lovable and Replit. I'm not going to be doing a build, but I am going to be sharing real examples because to actually go through a build, there's a fair amount there to kind of go through. If anybody does have any questions, please raise your hand. There is going to be a Q&A at the end. But I'm just going to kind of get started and jump through. If everybody can kind of just go on mute though in the meantime, and then if you got a question, I'll kind of throw that out, and then we'll kind of go from there. I'm going to get started just because I really want to kind of get through everything. If you raise your hand and I don't see you because I got a couple of screens going on, don't feel just unmute and just say, "Oh, Barry, I got a question." And I will be sharing this deck also. So before anybody asks, "Hey, can we get access to the deck?" 100%, I promise. When I do the event recap, I'm going to give that as well. So I'm going to just kind of jump in. And first principle that I want to kind of go over, we often hear about human in the loop. That is absolutely imperative. It's critically important.
Why
To
is
me,
it?
human in the loop, though, that's an administrative function. That's more about ensuring that AI is staying on track, etc. I really operate with this notion of human at the helm. I spoke with other people, and they have different versions of calling it. But regardless what the platform is, the fundamental principle is that the human is always the foundation first, that AI is configured around them.
Strange. I'm
I,
not
I
getting
think a lot of people are operating AI first, and it's really around build around what AI can do and insert humans where it fails. And I completely disagree with that. And I think it's not really fully understanding AI or getting the most out of it. Human first or human at the helm, that literally is that you build AI's role around amplifying the human's expertise, not replacing it. And it's also about understanding what you want to build and using yourself as that strategic guide, the creative guide, etc. So that's the first principle that I just want to throw out there because I think it's really important, especially as people are trying to understand what is the role with AI. The rule is to always be leading. So the starting point for today's conversation, though, is first, what is vibe coding? I remember when that first came up, and I first heard about it when I was part of the Perplexity Business Fellowship, which is what led to the AI Fellowship. And it actually was a gentleman, Karparthi, who basically, Andrej described it in February of 2025. And it was all about, and you're going to see this, you don't need to be a coder. You can just use natural human language. And he called it vibe coding. And this was his quote, that you just want to fully give into the vibes, to embrace exponentials or the opportunity, that the compounding benefit of just talking about what you want to have happen, and you forget that the code even exists. So it's that notion of literally going with the vibe and not getting caught up in the technicality, but more of the outcome. And right now, where we are today in 2026, 92% of developers have used AI coding tools. 60% of new code so far written in 2026 was AI generated. So the key though here is vibe coding is not something that you need to be a coder to do. And if you are a coder, I think it's going to give you exponential value. But not being a coder, it's really unleashing your potential because for the first time, you're able to have an idea, whether it's a website, whether it's an app, whether it's a system. You literally on your own can build this out. And for those of you who attended our event launch with Brian Hickling, Brian is the perfect example. He's never coded a day in his life, and he built an entire app just by vibe coding on its own. So here's what we're going to cover today. I'm not going to be doing live build from scratch, I am going to show you the examples, and we're going to go through a bunch of system reviews of how each works. What we're going to be covering is, regardless of the system you're on, what are things to do before you build. We're then going to go through Lovable, and I'm going to do a demo and show you what Lovable looks like, how you can use it, etc. Then we're going to go into Replit. Replit and Lovable are two incredible vibe coding platforms. They're very similar and they're very different, and we're going to explain what those are with a side-by-side comparison, and then we're going to have an open Q&A. Having said that, if you have any questions, just raise your hand. Absolutely happy to answer as we go. I will answer any questions earlier a little bit more quickly, just to make sure that we get through the rest of the agenda though. And I am recording this. The recording and the deck is going to be available to everybody, so I will do a follow-up. I want to start off though on project prep, what to do before you actually build. And the reason why I want to do this is good planning and preparation up front is going to increase the success of what it is that you want to build out. So it might take you a little bit more prep time, but it's going to do a couple of things. It's going to reduce the amount of tokens that you're going to use, so you're going to save some money. But it's also going to ensure that you've got a stronger outcome, which is going to be pretty critical. And I'm going to go through what that means. One of the starting points of what I want to talk about was something that I ran into, and I created what I called an operating agreement. And this was basically a Markdown file. And if any of you have used Claude or any other systems, it's basically just a document, and it's a document that says it's got information about how you want a project to be run, or how you want to research something, or anything for that matter. I wanted to create an operating agreement that codified how I and the AI and the platforms I was using was going to divide the work. And I used it anytime the systems started to drift. Why did this matter? Well, one, I wanted to define roles. I wanted to have roles of who was going to be responsible for strategic versus technical versus orchestration. I'm not a programmer. I'm not a CS graduate. I've never coded anything in my life. And even though I've always led teams, I was always strategy, I was UI, I was UX. And why I wanted to create this, I wanted to define the roles because I was finding that the systems were asking me to do a lot of technical work. And I didn't want to do the technical work because I didn't know how. So I created an operating agreement that defined what my role was, named whenever certain things were required, what was I willing to do and not willing to do. It was going to be a living document that I could keep updating, and it basically was something that the systems would refer to. So literally from my operating agreement, I'm going to make this available to everyone. I said, if a question requires technical investigation, and in this instance, I was using Claude and Lovable, that the path was to go from Claude to Lovable directly, that I don't perform diagnosis, and if something breaks, the response is Claude creates something to paste into Lovable, not having me opening JSON or doing technical work. Why that became important is it was asking me to do things like open developer tools in browser, so dev tools, network tabs. It was asking me to read or copy raw data dumps, JSON, stack traces, error logs, to write database queries, etc. Nope, that wasn't what I was going to do. And just to show you a quick example, and for anybody that goes onto my site, barryhillier.com, you can go into Insights and go into Templates. As I've been creating my own Markdown files, I created this operating agreement that you can literally download as a Markdown. But how it basically worked, it said who I was. Barry is a strategic consultant, brand and intelligence architect, a strong product manager, an operator who understands AI, UX, etc. Barry is not a developer, a technical debugger, someone who should be opening dev tools, reading JSON, interpreting stack traces, etc. It gave a division of labor. Here's what Barry's job is. Here's what Lovable's job is. Here's what Claude's job is. And so what that allowed was for me, as part of the project prep, to literally establish, here is what you need to do. And it took the onus off of me of having to worry about anything technical. And I use Lovable, and in this case Claude, in order to be able to manage the code side. And anytime it started to drift, I just said, I want you to refer back to our operating agreement, you're drifting, and it would snap back immediately. So again, just go to barryhillier.com. You can see that and a bunch of other Markdown files. So I also create what I'm calling a single source of truth for design. So what are these? Well, these are brand tokens, design files, references, all different assets in one place. What that allows is I'm able to download that into Lovable or into Replit, and it now refers to that so that it understands the look and feel of what it is that you're trying to build, whether it's a website, whether it's an app, etc. So what I generally do is I create, and I'm going to show you an example here. Let me just get this over here. So for Blade Air, I'm not going to go through this in detail, but to give you an idea, it basically is one folder, and it's got imagery, it's got all sorts of logos, it's got word marks, it has a full design system, it has a PowerPoint deck that's attached, it has all the colors and type as CSS files, it has all sorts of different documentation, etc. README files, all of the information that I'm relying on to create a project is all in this one document. So it knows what things should look like and feel. So if you don't have something like this, just go to Claude Design, which is now part of the Claude system, and you can upload all your documentation and you can have it build out an entire system. Once you have that system, you can use that just before you start any project, and now it's not going to go on its own and start making up logos. It's not going to design anything on its own in terms of the look and feel. It's going to know what your brand is and how it needs to be represented. So jumping now next, connect to Git. Okay, not everybody's going to understand what Git is, but basically if you ever heard of Git, GitHub, all of these things, it's the best way to think about it, or a simple way to think about it, non-technical terms, is it's your backup of everything that you're doing. It's all the changes, and once you publish something, it's your history. And why is this important? Well, first of all, it's insurance. If something goes wrong, and something's going to go wrong at some point, you can rely back to a Git, and you can reinitiate and update so you don't lose your entire system. I've had people who have been involved in coding and building and doing things literally tell me that they hadn't published and they lost an entire day's worth of work because they didn't publish it. So make sure that you're connecting, and every time you publish, your Git is your backup. It's also your audit trail. When did you make changes? It's all of these things, and you can set that up inside the system. Literally, you can say, help me set up a Git, and you can, if you don't have one, it'll show you, you can use Claude, you can use chat, you can use almost anything to teach you how do I make my first Git if you don't have one. And once you have it, you can connect your project directly to your Git in order to have all of this. So again, very, very quickly, a Git is the system that saves every change you make as a snapshot. GitHub is basically one of the most popular places where people go to. And Git is your safety net. GitHub is where it's all held together. So how you connect these in Lovable, if you're on Pro Plan, there's a GitHub Connect. You just pick basically the project. And then from then on, it's a two-way sync. Every time that you hit publish, it's also publishing to your Git. In Replit, you go to Workspace, Version Control, and from there you connect to GitHub. So there's a bunch of connectors in both Lovable and Replit that will allow you to connect not just to things like GitHub, they're going to allow you to connect to Canva, they're going to allow you to connect to Figma. There's tons of stuff. So we'll go through a bunch of that. So what's your pre-flight checklist? Whoops. It's 6 things. Get an operating agreement together, so that way all of the systems that you're using, and we're not going to go into using Claude with each of these, but they're really good to kind of work together. You can use one to help you refine the prompts, and then you can use Lovable or Replit to then execute, or you can have Lovable and Replit where you just work through them directly. Get your brand standards and all of the key assets that you need to draw on. So if you have images, if you have product catalogs, if you have whatever it is, throw it all into one folder that the system can then use. Make sure if you do have that design system organized, you have all of that, including how you want your UI, etc., organized. And then basically understand what are the systems that you're going to use. Are you just going to go through Lovable directly, Replit directly, or are going to use Claude, or are you going to use Chat in combination with it? And there's no rule. You can just play. And then if you happen to, as you're going through, there are existing prompts that I'm going to show you in Lovable and Replit. You just hit basically / and they'll pop up. But as you're going through, if there are prompts that you're going to be using often, start to create your own library of prompts that you like. And then that way you can start to just easily access those to repeat them. And one of the things that is going to be important, and you'll see this in almost all of the AI systems right now, they tend to have a plan and they tend to have a build. So if you're not sure what you want to do, use the plan mode just to go through and figure out what's the best way of approaching the problem or the attack that you want to do within any of the systems, and just go back and forth. You don't need to worry about the technical side. Is it strategically making sense to you? Once you then secure the plan, then you can start to execute. Some of the last things that I want to talk about, for those of you who have heard of Wispr, and I don't know if you have or if you haven't, it's WISPR. And what Wispr is amazing at is it's basically you just speaking. So you hit on a Mac, it's the FN key. I'm not sure on a non-Mac. But Wispr allows you to just talk. And here's why I think that that's important. First and foremost, your voice is 3 to 4 times faster than typing. So from an efficiency standpoint, you can fly. But it's not just that. AI operates on context. And when you speak, you're giving far more context, including if you're speaking and you've got your chain of thought and you're kind of changing midway. That's okay, because it's basically creating a sense of how you're seeing things. And so for both of those reasons, you can be more efficient because you're able to move faster, but you're also giving a lot more context. Because when you're trying to think about the prompt, you're pausing, you're typing, you're thinking about it, you're not getting quite as much out. So you're not getting the flourish, you're not getting the flowery language that is helping you walk through what you're trying to say and what you want to see as an output. So added context really helps in the performance of what you're building. So first prompt, what you want to be able to try to do is a general structure. And don't worry about doing this each and every time, by the way. So this is how you use AI. It's not like that at all. But if you can provide context, who's it for? What's it a part of? Are brand standards important for whatever the output is? What's the outcome you want? What's the goal? So not the steps, what's the outcome? What does it need to do? And what should it never do? And then this is again where you can use plan mode to review before you build. So that works out really well. And then the visual check after, there's a ability in almost all AI now where you can actually click visual and you can do almost like inline editing versus just using the side nav area where you've got the context window. And then what's that exit? When it's done, what does it look like for you? So that's just a general structure. But if you don't use it, that's okay too. You know, can kind of play it. But once you establish context, the goal, what are constraints in terms of what it needs to do and not do? And if you use plan, you're going to be able to then have more time to really make sure that you get that in place to be executing exactly what you want. Why that's important is plan versus build. You're going to use up less tokens, which is, you know, saving you money. That's a good thing. And then again, I'm going to just go over a few words because, again, I'm not a tech guy. So understanding what some terms are in simple language, I think is a good thing that I'm just going to spend just a few moments to cover. So when you hear React, what's React? It's a toolkit for the visible parts of a web app. So it's the buttons, forms, pages. I'm going to be generalizing here. TypeScript. Well, it's JavaScript with type checking, catches wrong data, bugs, etc. before they ship. What's PWA? A website that behaves like a native app. So it's installable and it can work offline. Where data lives, Supabase, especially for Lovable, that's the all-in-one engine. It's a database. It's where your login is, it's storage, it's rules. Postgres, reliable database. It's a type spreadsheet with rules. RLS, row level security, who can see what rows of data. So it's just basically, you know, permission. Auth, authentication. So it's for sign up, login, sessions, password resets. The machine, so IDE, integrated dev environment. So one app to write, run, and ship code. So Replits is in the browser as an example. Workspace, that's Replits IDE. It's where files, terminal, packages all operate in your browser. NPM or PyPy, public libraries, pre-built tools you can install instead of building. An API, it's a two-way, a way for two pieces of software to talk to each other. From a AI standpoint, you'll also hear MCP. Edge function, it's a small piece of server code that runs on demand. So no server is needed. You'll see that a lot. For mobile and enterprise, Expo, so build real iOS and Android apps using web code or React. QR preview, scans QR code with your phone to open an in-progress live app. SSO, single sign-on. And SCIM, standard for syncing user accounts from your HR system. So I just wanted to cover some things off, mainly because not everybody is up to date, and I wanted more of a simple language and an explanation here. So we're going to now jump into Lovable. So Lovable is a design-first builder. So, oh, Rima?
Just a question, a couple of slides back before you get into Lovable. You talked about all the different kinds of assets and brand assets and everything. You didn't talk about a master data set. Do you count on your database to build that out for you? Because do you build out a data structure that I didn't see?
So your database is going to be dependent on what the project is. And
Right, but the fields, like the things that you're collecting and that you're asking people, typically because I start with the data usually. So I'm just asking, is that somewhere in your planning?
It absolutely can be. And this is where, especially if you're non-technical, this is where you use the system, whether it's Lovable or Replit, to say what are best practices, what are the questions I should be asking, what should I be holding, what's needed. I'll show you a really good example in a system that I built called Find My Brand DNA, which I am going to show you. So it's you don't need to start out with that. You can actually use the systems to understand what's the best way to create what are the cells and what is the best data sets to give me the result that I need. And then often the best way to also get there is asking the opposite questions. What am I not including that I should be including? So it's that Stanford design kind of question to be able to kind of get at the right answers. Does that help?
Yep, thanks.
Oh, welcome. So, okay, what is Lovable? Lovable's unbelievable. It's a description first AI app builder. So vibe code, you chat. It ships real React and TypeScript apps, websites, etc. on a Supabase backend. Currently 2.3 million users and growing. 100 million ARR, one of the fastest growing systems ever. $6.6 billion valuation as of December. And it currently is in a Series B, and it has NVIDIA and Salesforce's backers, $330 million. How is it used? It's a default loop, and it's conversation-based that becomes a product. So again, a lot of people think about Lovable as, oh, it's a web builder. It is, but it's more than that. Same thing with Replit. It is capable of doing so much more. But what makes this fantastic for non-technical users is first you describe, so plain English. Here's what I want to do. Then you can go through planning. Lovable will show you the build plan first. You can approve it, you can adjust it. Highly recommend going through the plan first, mainly because it's going to ask questions, it's going to give you how it would approach things, and rather than burning credits on the build and going down the wrong way, you can get that all organized ahead of time. Then it's going to generate, so it's going to create a full stack React and Supabase app so fast your head's going to spin. And then you can iterate, and you can use visual edits, you can use chat mode, dev mode, whatever it is that you want, and then you publish. And publishing is super easy. If you've got a doesn't matter what system that you're using for your URL, for your domain, it will connect to it. And occasionally I've had to go in and add some of the code in terms of to making sure everything's synced up. But most of the time it manages that all on its own. You just got to send it to the direction. I'm on Namecheap, I'm on whatever, and it will say, all right, give me access, and it just manages through all of that. Sorry. And so just moving on here. So we are right now in Lovable 2.0. There's basically 4 ways to drive the agent. So one is chat mode, just agentic conversation. You ask questions, you plan the architecture, you can use it to debug without editing the code. The agent reasons across files, logs, and the database. And this is where there are sub-agents that were added somewhat recently. And you basically just treat the system like it's a team and just talk to it, and you're the manager, direct it to what you need. You then can also do visual edits. You can click any element inside. You can adjust padding, color, spacing like Figma. There's 0 credit cost doing that. It's faster than prompting. It was just cosmetic changes. You can approve, so there's plan mode. Have Lovable show the structured plan build, and then you can review and then do that. And one of the things that's really great, and I use this all the time, I'll have a bunch of prompts that I want to hit it up with. So rather than having a really long, complicated prompt, breaking it up into bite sizes so that I can kind of execute on it, it can stack up to 50 prompts. And then it will execute each of them in sequence. And so you can batch changes across without babysitting. I've often knocked off a bunch of prompts, put it in the queue, walked away to take a meeting, or I work on something else in the meantime. What's the platform underneath? So it's a Supabase native, multiplayer, and security is baked into the publish. And one of the things that you're going to notice on security, it will keep saying, hey, there's some security issues. And it will say free to fix. As it's checking the systems, you can go through and check to make sure that all of your security is updated as you're going through. So you've got dev mode. You can edit generated code directly inside Lovable. No export for power users. The Supabase backend, which is basically what Lovable operates on. It's the database, the rules for who sees what, the login flow, live updates, all built just simply from your prompt. So you don't need to be a coder at all. There is a security scan always on publish. So there's a vulnerability check before you deploy. So inside of the publish, you're going to see issues that will pop up, and then it will have a, hey, fix mine. Multiple people can be added to the same project. So you can share and edit within your team. And I've used that for a number of projects. So under the hood in plain English, here's what's happening. Your prompt, plain English, just talk. Lovable agent, that's the sub-agents. They're working in the background. They plan, write, they edit the code. Your front end is React and TS. It's what users are going to see in the browser. So TypeScript. You're going to have your backend is Supabase. That is your full database. And then the publish app is the live URL. So again, I'm not going to go through all of this, but think of Supabase as it's basically the engine room. That's where all the data lives, the rules sit, etc. Non-tech, you don't necessarily need to worry about it too much, but that's what's there. New as of May, sub-agents. So Lovable's better at multitasking. It got released May 27th. What do sub-agents do? They're a small research team. That's one way to think about it. The main agent sends helpers off to grab pieces of your project, looks at them in parallel, reports back, but only the main agent can write the code. So you basically have a whole team now. So you're going to get more done faster and much more clearly. There's parallel exploration, so each sub-agent gets a job, scans part of the code base, researches the library or searches the web, findings come back to the main agent. What that means is, like most AI, it's getting cheaper and faster and better. And code changes stay central. So they can't modify your code. So only the main agent can run. So again, it's like you just added more to your team. There are all sorts of shortcuts and prompt patterns. Basically, you can do chat mode, visual edits, plan mode, prompt queue, again, stacking up. Dev mode, so edit generated code directly in the platform for those who do know how to do that. And you can have your GitHub sync. So all of that, awesome. So I'm going to jump into what does it look like on the back end live. And I know I'm going through stuff somewhat quickly, so again, I'm gonna share the deck. But I'm going to start off and I'm going to show you an example. I think most of you who know me on the call, or even know me a little bit, I volunteer for a lot of stuff. This is a group that I volunteer with. They're called the Outstanding Teenager Leadership Foundation. Awesome group. They're all high school students, incredibly bright. This is what their website looks like. So I want to show you the current website. And so you get into About Us, and this is their About Us page. So, you know, high school students, they put all this stuff together, and they've got all sorts of great little events, all sorts of things that they do out, etc. So about 3 months ago, maybe, I had them literally, it was 2 hours, and I used chat and Lovable, and in 2 hours showed them in real time how to use Lovable to update their website. The only reason it's not live now is they're putting together a subcommittee, and I'm going to work with them to kind of get it live. But everything I'm showing you here, I put together in 2 hours from scratch. So this is the home page, just as a slightly different look. So again, I did start where I put photos and logos, etc., into a folder to be able to go through. Started to then create what was the breakout of all the different things that they worked on, created the ability to have, all these different programs where people could inquire, etc. So this was a bit of behind the scenes, who are the advisors, etc. So again, all of this was put together, this entire website, in 2 hours. The only thing that I did afterwards was, because there were a lot of Chinese parents who did not necessarily speak English quite as clearly. Afterwards, I had the entire site converted to Chinese. That took me another 15 minutes when I got home, just because I wanted to do it. So it just shows you, in literally under 3 hours, it recreated not only the entire website, built it out, but then allowed me to then change that into Mandarin in under 3 hours from beginning to end. So jumping through, what are some of the other ways that I've used on the back end? So right here, this is my own personal website. So I used this, and I'm going to start. If you're just building out a website, Lovable is awesome. It is so easy. I was able to go through, create all of it, talk about companies that I've been involved in, start to go through all of sorts of different brands that I've worked with in the past. I created and demonstrated and showcased my portfolio. So I uploaded all of that. Started to create, where I put together, there was a AI playbook that I wrote in February for the automotive industry. So uploaded that, and then created simple things like templates, like the MD files that anybody can access. Just go to my website. You can download any of those for free. So simple website, awesome. What else did I do? So right here, for all of you who have seen the AI Fellowship, this is now taking it as a working website, but I went well beyond that. So created the website, including within Lovable, I created these animations inside of Lovable. So this is where I started to direct it and build off of what was the look and the feel. Organized so that it would have like all the upcoming events, etc. And thank you all for joining today. Created it so that way we could have resources that are available, so anybody could go through, access different resources. Created the member list, so as people came on, organized that it would showcase everyone, and I created the rules of how the rankings would work. So for everybody here who hasn't filled out your membership, how rankings work are, the more engaged you are, the higher you rank. We wanted to democratize it all. Here's where it started to go from it being a website. I also built out the entire back end for management. So this is where we can go through, created the entire system to be able to manage all the events. So the leadership team had full access. You could start a new event. We got a simple listing, an expanded listing, be able to upload entire new events. And for other people who wanted to submit an event, so if any of you have events, you could go in, you could submit an event, fill it all in. So everything that I'm showing you here, I built inside of Lovable. So when somebody submits an event on the back end, we're able to go through and we can see what are pending. You can see what are pending, what are draft, or what are rejected. Haven't rejected anybody. And as soon as we hit approved, it goes live. Also created it so that the system, you may have received emails from us, so set it up so that for each of these systems, I could go in and I could go through and I could preview an email, and as it came up, it would showcase what the email was, and then I could then send a test to anybody, or I could send to any members ahead of time. This entire back-end system was created in Lovable. The other aspect of what I did, was a full system. So it went from website to a website with a full admin. This was a Find My Brand DNA. So the back end of Find My Brand DNA, front end is more like a typical website, but what I actually built out was this back end system. I'd created a workshop that basically was a moderated workshop to help guide people through a brand DNA. So it was all these types of questions here that you could go through, and by filling in out all of this info, all these questions, it then created the ability to have multiple stakeholders create what they thought their brand should be all about. And the net impact of all of this is by taking in different versions. So you could go out and you could ask your board to provide their input, your customer to provide their input. In the case of like the AI fellowship, or I do work with Schulich School of Business, high tech, multiple different accelerators, they could have cohorts that previously worked with them answer questions. The system then amalgamates all of this and literally creates outputs. So I'll show you very quickly. One of the examples was with the Artificial Intelligence Safety Foundation. So as they would go through, I could sit down and take all of that information and then basically go through all of this, and I could generate information that consolidated all of this down into their brand DNA documentation as a PowerPoint presentation and a document. So all of this was done within a Lovable framework. So there's a lot more, but I wanted you to see the power of what you can do in Lovable. That's not just a website. You can do so much more. So like, for instance, being able to go through and adjust all of this stuff. You can even add customized questions, all sorts of things within all of this. So anyway, that's all of the stuff that I was able to organize within a Lovable framework. So for anybody here, and I'm going to copy, whoops, let me copy this. If you're not using Lovable, here is a access. So I will end up getting, or take the QR code. I will get credits and you guys get credits. So if you actually use those. Sorry, so there's questions here. So Natalia, so ML, do you mean MD?
Oh, MD, sorry, yeah.
Yeah. That is, it stands for Markdown file.
Okay.
And it can utilize a doc. That has just become something of what, and I don't know if Claude, I don't know if anybody else knows this, I don't know if Claude started that, but that just started to be how they were managing the formats of the file systems. So you can upload any kind of document within the system and it will go through and read it. It's just the Markdown files seem to be what have just started to become what
Hi Barry. Hi Barry. I'm Munish, and I have been working on Claude. So basically, basically Natalia, it is like it is a document, but it is not like document of our Word document, which means Claude or any AI system needs a special type of document called .md files. So you can write a normal document and then say to ChatGPT or Claude, convert into .md file. It is just an easy way. It means artificial intelligence can only parse these documents, .md files. So you must have heard everything is like skills.md or...
Yeah. No, I keep seeing it and I'm like, where do they how do you create one .md?
No. You can write as a normal Word document, and then you can change it to .md file.
Or I'll tell you what I do. So absolutely, and thank you very much. Appreciate that, by the way. Just ask the systems to create it, and then they'll flush it out. The same thing like how I created my operating Markdown file was I said, here's what I need to be able to do. Here's what I can't do. I outlined everything, and then it fleshed it out in a full document, and then I did a final edit.
Okay, and final edit you did in what? In not in Docs, in text edit or something, or Notepad?
No, no. I didn't leave the system, just right here. So when you go through and you ask Lovable, this is where you can do the prompt. And so just very, very quickly, because I didn't cover this, and Lori, I did see you raise your hand there. But oh, and by the way, I can't see everybody. I only see a limited number. So if you do, she just happened to be there. Just hit the raise hand and you'll pop up on me. But you can use a number of different tools in order to do it. But you can just sit down and ask Lovable and just say, create a Markdown tool. And by the way, right here where it says visual edit, this is what the visual edit is. So this is where you can edit in, and you can say, I want you to change this button.
Oh, wonderful.
Okay. So, I know I'm going fast, but I just wanted to give everybody enough of an overview to feel comfortable. The other question that you had asked was why Wispr and what's the difference?
And why it's separate app overall? Like I talked to Claude, I talked to other, like why people use Wispr, I'm confused.
You can use this and it will absolutely work.
Yeah.
So when I sit down and say, here we go, it'll absolutely work. So it's going to transcribe it. Now, when I use Wispr, it has a longer context window, so I can talk longer. And I use Wispr across everything. So some things don't have the ability to have voice. So that just allows me to kind of do that. Okay. And so Lori here said she uses a free tool called Obsidian. Yeah, I absolutely adore Wispr. Oh, okay. Karan, you had a question? You're on mute if you are talking. Sorry, Petite 198, Karan Siddharth. I know your hand's raised. Okay, we'll jump back just to keep going. I can't hear you, by the way, if you were talking.
Yeah, he put something in the chat.
Yeah, I got the answers.
Oh, perfect. Okay, awesome. Okay, thank you, guys. All right, so I'm going to jump into Replit, and then we are going to go through. So this is a code first agent. Here's the. I'm going to show the examples of the two side by side, but here's how to think about it more easily. Lovable. Awesome. I love Lovable. I've built, I think, 10 different systems inside of Lovable. Replit is better when you have a more complicated task that's requiring more database oriented projects. So if you're building an app, if you're building a much more intensive system, but it's not as easy to use as Lovable. Lovable's super easy, but it's going to have some limitations. Replit, slightly harder to use. You can still do as much, but it's going to also give you, generally speaking, a bit of a deeper level of capacity when you're relying on things like databases, etc. And then the next level would be a little bit more like if you start to think about you're going to be using Codex or Claude Code, and you're going to be putting that into Cursor or VS Studio. At that stage, that's going to be much, much more advanced. So is Lovable better than Claude for building websites? I use Claude. Lovable is like a frame that captures the site and it's all contained, versus Claude is a system that I generally use to help inform the prompts to build out the site. So it's one of those that I think it's awesome in terms of Claude. I use them together, but again, there's no one way of doing things. This is the thing. I hate when people are like, this is the one way to use AI, or this is the one system on AI. I call bullshit on all of it, and I don't know what's the best, and I'm sure there's something that's better than what I've used, which is why I love seeing what people are doing, because I want to try it out.
Barry, can you break that out a little bit more? When you say you're using Claude to break down the prompts,
yeah,
to then put in Replit. Can you expand on that just a little bit more?
Yeah. So what I'll do is I'll actually use an example that I'm going to be showing. So I just to show you Replit shortly, I had Lovable export everything for Find My Brand DNA because I needed to shift it anyway. I just had so many credits on Lovable, I just built it out there because ordinarily I would have started on Replit for that particular project. So it basically generated the full zip package on Lovable. I then threw that into Claude and I said, take a look at the attachment. I'm trying to determine if I should shift the brand DNA project from Lovable to Replit. And this is the package Lovable provided. Related to that, should I keep the existing Supabase backend or build a new independent backend that is not dependent on the existing project? What future-proofs me and provides better scale and work? The reason why I did this is if I ask Lovable, it's going to say it's great. If I ask Replit, it's going to say it's great. I used Claude to basically provide what's your perspective, not what's right. What's your perspective? So it unpacked everything, and here's how it said. You're treating this as two questions. It's actually one decision and one non-decision. The non-decision, Lovable versus Replit as your build host environment, is a lateral move. Both are opinionated platforms. Swapping one for the other doesn't future-proof you, it repots the same plant. What future-proofs you is making the GitHub repo your source of truth and treating the host as swappable. Replit, Vercel, Netlify, Local all become interchangeable. So the actual decision, and it's not the one you asked, your real lock-in was never Supabase. It's that the Supabase project is currently Lovable's asset, not yours. So then it gives me all of these examples. So now what I can do, so it gave me the full recommendation. Here's how all this stuff could be. So I could now sit down and say this exactly. Give me a prompt to initially organize and start out on Replit, but also then walk me through the prompts of how I can be setting up Supabase on my own or provide me a additional recommendation. And so, and again, I'm just going through this really quick, but just to answer your question, this is how I use it. So I use Claude as a back and forth strategic guide, and then I use Lovable or Replit to execute. And then if there's something that's happening in one or the other, I will throw it back into Claude, or sometimes I'll use chat to validate. So again, here's the decision that shapes everything. Don't migrate the hosts and the backend at the same time, sequence them. So it's now creating, it's writing the prompts as copy paste blocks for the Replit agent plus the Supabase steps that are dashboard actions. So while this is doing this, I'm going to come back to this to show you what it's done. So we'll let this work in the background. So now jumping into what Replit is. Full browser dev environment plus an autonomous agent. The model, you delegate the goal, the agent runs the project. So the environment, I'll let you go through all this, but it's basically the agent model is a project delegator. You set the high level goal and agent 4. So agent 4 is simply, it's the most recent agent. Used to be on agent 3. Now it's agent 4. So that's all that means. Pardon me?
Shoot. It's supposed to be on a call from 12 o'clock. I forgot about it. Anyway,
oh,
we're finishing off.
Okay. Well, hopefully this was worth missing.
What is the date for this rulage? Potential?
Oh.
He didn't list it in mine.
Oh, sorry. If you can just go on mute, please. And so you set the high level goal.
How do you spell the name?
SRULO.
Okay, I did the mute. You set the high level goal. Agent 4 plans the architecture, writes the code, provisions the database, verifies every button. So just to give a sense of some of the differences, so you can kind of see how just kind of jumping in, you've got Lovable, fairly easy look. Not that Replit is all that harder, but it's slightly more advanced in terms of the look and feel. So this is the back end of Replit, and this was a site that I built out. And going back to your comment, I actually had some of the initial design I built using Claude, and then I imported that into Replit. This is something called the future of business.ai, which was just thoughts that I had, and I just wanted to kind of get it off and kind of build out on that. So what ends up happening, what's under the hood? Again, very similar, but this is full Linux computer in your browser. The agent operates it like a developer would. So this is much more like you have a very, very strong coding team at your fingertips. And again, I'm oversimplifying, but your goal, again, plain English. You don't need to worry about being a programmer. Replit Agent 4 does the planning, the coding, the tests, and the fixes. It basically creates a workspace that's a Linux box terminal packages. You have basically the database and everything related to it is provisioned by the agent, and then you can basically deploy it. So what's the workspace? Again, it's the Linux computer running in the cloud. It's files, terminal, install packages, network, everything developer's laptop has, but it's in the browser. So all of that's kind of combined there. How's it used? Set a goal, walk away, come back to working app, similar to what I just did with Claude. Take Claude, we can throw that up. We're going to go back to it. The goal here, you describe the outcome, not the steps. It's going to go through the plan. It's going to do the build. It's going to do the self-test, and then you can just manage the deployment. And what ends up happening with Agent 4 versus Agent 3? Significantly faster builds, multiple agents working in parallel. And what this means at the end of the day is you can basically, you have an infinite canvas, just like Lovable. You can connect to all sorts of other systems, whether it's Canva, whether it's Figma, etc. You can ship anything, apps, sites, decks, videos, all of these things can all get organized. You can also use things like Kanban, so you can have multiple users. You can have agents and other people in your team working side by side, and significantly faster. And I am going to get into costing shortly. So the big difference between Agent 3 to Agent 4, it was one autonomous worker that ran long. Agent 4 is a team. That's the simple. I'm going to go through this because I want to leave room for questions and other people to throw in what they're doing and how they're using this as well. But that's the main difference. And it's a big difference. There's also a self-healing loop. So the agent uses the app like a real user. If it finds something broken, it then works on fixing it. So the agent's operating the live browser. It's watching what breaks, error messages, slow loads, diagnoses it, and it repairs it. Having said everything that I just said, human at the helm. Don't think it's always doing this. Just like, I'd work with programmers. They always had a way of doing things. I'd catch stuff that they didn't catch. Don't rely on it being omnipotent and omniscient. It's not. So even though it's doing these things, you still go through and you're going to operate things the way that a human would, and you'll still probably catch some things that the system doesn't catch. So yeah, we need human in the loop, but we also need human at the helm for this also. So stacks. What's all of this? Agent 4 can generate other specialized agents and automations. So this is now where you can create your own agents. So when I was building out one of the systems, I asked it to create my own agents. I wanted a creative director, I wanted a copywriter, I wanted a strategic planner, I wanted an editor, and I basically wanted to incorporate all of these things. So that way I was kind of creating my own team, and I had it generate its own Markdown files as to what each of those agents needed to do and how they needed to behave and act and how they should work together. So in terms of, there's also native preview on your phone. So what does that mean? It means basically you can have live monitoring on your web, on your mobile app. Somebody had called me and there was an issue on something, and I was walking home from the TTC. I literally pulled up my app, and inside of my app, I was able to get it fixed before I got home. So some handy things there that come in quite handy. like everything, there is, and I kind of skipped over, but there is pricing that I'll go over for Lovable, but you can have a free. There's a core, $25 a month. I'm on the pro, the $100 a month, and I can add 15 collaborators. It gives me faster speeds and a fair amount of capability. The one thing that I would say, and somebody was asking me about Lovable. On the Lovable, I'm on a $350 a month plan, which, okay, your initial reaction is that's a lot, but I think about it as I'm basically getting the equivalent of $20,000 worth of staff if I had to hire them for $350 a month. So it all depends on not looking at it just as software. Yeah, it's not a software mentality. It's think of this as you have a team that is now going to maximize what you're able to do and do things you weren't able to do before, like for me, code. All of these things, there's lots of shortcuts and prompts. I'm going to share this when you're in Lovable, just as an example, and you want to see a bunch of the prompts. If you just hit / you're going to see all sorts of different quick access, redesign, SEO review, video creator. You can add your own, etc. There's similar prompts when you get into shortboard shortcuts for those that are really starting to, want to do the power moves when it comes down to Replit. I will share the deck. I just want to make sure that we have enough time to get through a few more things and have Q&A, so I don't mean to rush. So when you get into, and I'm going to use all of this as an example, one of the things that I did was I asked Lovable to export the system for Find My Brand DNA. So now jumping back into where we were before, give me a prompt. Here's how Claude. So it's saying don't migrate the hosts and the backend at the same time, sequence them. It's created prompts. So here's all the prompts in Claude. So it's basically indicating there's 4 sequences. Front end runs on Replit against the current Lovable on Supabase. Next one, stand up your own Supabase project, strip Lovable dependencies, and then cut over a custom domain. So basically, it literally gives me the full prompt inside and gives me a step-by-step guide of what I should do, as well as a bunch of info on the inside. So what I asked to answer Andrea, I took the export zip, which was this file. Let me just find it. Sorry, I just got to shift some things here. I took this. This was the export. So it was a few MD files with a Replit migration, and then it had all of this, which was the background of Supabase, all of this stuff. All I did, so before everybody's like, oh, how'd you do that? I literally went through here and let me just get back into this. What I did was I asked the system, give me a download to all files needed for Replit to duplicate the system. That's all I asked. It then zipped it all, created the zip that I just showed you, which, just to showcase that again, was all of this as the output. I then went into Claude and I downloaded that entire zip, and then I asked it to look through this and then for it to guide me through what could I do and what was the right next steps to migrate over into Replit. And then basically it then created this as the recommendation with all of the prompts in order for me to then go through, and now I can copy and paste all of those into Replit. But when I first went into Replit, it basically had said, how do you want to handle the backend database? Keep using the existing Supabase, build a brand new independent backend from scratch, or I'm not sure, help me decide. That's then when I went and basically said to Claude, what should I be doing? So I used that to kind of break all of that. But all of these things operate very, very similarly. It's just because Find My Brand DNA is operating with a lot more data, a lot more database, all of this, I wanted to utilize Replit rather than Lovable to build that out as a working system. That was kind of the core difference there. And again, I do want to leave questions for Q&A. So for those of you who want to, you will get a credit. Right there is the system. You'll get $20 in credits. If you haven't used it, you can use my code, and then I think I get something too. All right, we're just going to come down to the end and then open up for Q&A. So Lovable versus Replit. Starting point for Lovable: description first, chat to a designer. Replit: code first, delegate to an agent. So it's just Replit is more code data focused. Lovable, more design and general conversation. What's it best for? Designers, founders, fast UI prototypes. Lovable is awesome. Replit: developers, more complex iterations and owning the stack. The backend, Supabase native for Lovable. Replit provisions its own database, secrets, APIs. You can manage multiple other areas. Autonomy, Lovable subagents. Replit, agent 4. So you can have up to a 200-minute unattended run on Replit, but you're going to burn through tokens like crazy if you do that. So I wouldn't recommend that. Self-test, this plan mode with security scan with Lovable. On Replit, you have a self-healing loop and the agent operates the live app. Mobile, you can do web, personal, like PWAs. Looks good on a phone browser. Replit, native iOS, Android preview. Pricing starts at $25 a month. Somewhat predictable credits on Lovable. $25 core for Replit, $100 Pro. Again, I find both systems amazing, and the cost versus the output of the teams and what you're getting, they're both, I think, really good. Where does it lag for Lovable? It's the back-end depth and complex iteration. On Replit, it's the opposite. It's the polish and the designer ergonomics. So it's, if you could combine them both together, you'd have the perfect system. But having said that, when I think about what the world looked like before both of these, what you can do and the speed you can do it, again, I go back to what I did with OTLF in 2 hours. It's unbelievable. Core structural dimensions. So when it comes down to Lovable, where the data lives, Lovable runs the engine room for you. You don't see the box, just the controls. Replit, inside your own work space. You own the database, the keys, everything on it. What the agent can change. Lovable, only Lovable shaped things, the app and its backend. Replit, anything on the computer. Files, libraries, anything a developer could touch. How the data structure is built from your prompt for Lovable, and it figures out the tables and access rules. Replit from the prompt, and the agent writes the real database files you can open and edit. How easy is it to leave? Code exports to GitHub on paid plans, but the backend is Lovable shaped. So again, I would now need to go and create my own backend system, my own Supabase or whatever. On Replit, it's a normal project. You can take it anywhere, AWS, your laptop, or another host. So there's a big advantage there. When to reach for each. Lovable, you're a designer, founder, or non-engineer. You want a polished demo or MVP fast. What you can do in a weekend will blow your mind. You want a somewhat predictable monthly cost. You're comfortable with Supabase as your backend. And if you're a non-coder, you're probably going to be like, sure. Visual fidelity matters from day one. Replit, you're a builder or a developer, you're iterating on a more complex multi-service app, you need agents that can spawn other agents. Mobile native preview matters, and you want ownership over the infrastructure you're shipping on. Limitations. So where do they break? Lovable, backend depth is shallow. I'm going to go through this somewhat quickly because I want to get to questions. Lovable shaped is locked in, so the code's yours, but the backend pattern is the platform's. There is an iteration ceiling. It's great as a V1, but as you start to get into multiple features, and I'm noticing this already for the AI fellowship, it starts to become, it's more difficult to continue to build. There's no native mobile, and there's a visual polish gap. So the defaults are good, but if you're somebody who's a pixel perfect designer, you're still going to need to do visual edits. Replit, effort-based credits spike. So if you use the 200-minute run, you're going to go through those fast. There's hallucinated functions. So agent 4 occasionally invents code that doesn't exist. Self-healing fakes. Agent can convince itself of a workaround as a fix. I had to create a Markdown file that basically stated, if I indicate that there is a problem, you are to assume that there is a problem until you prove that there isn't. Because it would often say, yeah, no, everything's fine. And it would outright, I'd be saying, why are you gaslighting me? So that can be a problem on both, quite frankly. No visual edits equivalent. So any cosmetic work is prompts. And there is a bigger learning curve on Replit versus Lovable. Here's the pricing side by side. I will say we're on a bit more of the enterprise. So I'm at about $350 a month, but I'm operating about 7 projects, and I can't burn through the credits. The problem is going down, I'm too low, but going higher. So if you can add more projects, the pricing really works. Cost realism, you can get a lot done if you just want to do a demo or weekend build on $25. If you want to be working far more deeply, Lovable is more of an even burn. It's not suddenly like you're just going to have this massive drop. Where Replit, it can, when you start going deep, it can burn quickly. And if you're looking at a multi-week production, look at Lovable Pro Plus and Replit Pro in order to basically make sure that you're able to kind of get through all of this. And so just kind of getting down to the last, when not to vibe code. If you are in regulated workloads, so healthcare data, financial reporting, deep things like payments, etc., may not necessarily be the best to be vibe coding. If there are security critical paths, again, this relates to that, you're going to want to make sure that you're working with somebody who understands that side of things. Don't trust the systems. If you have complex multi-service systems, real-time pipelines, distributed transactions, vibe coding isn't there yet. Mission critical infrastructure, if the downtime costs more than the team, don't do a vibe code. It's a long-lived enterprise software. Vibe coding is great if you're testing MVP. Don't let, this is what you're seeing with all these coders that got fired, now they're being rehired. You still need a lot of them. And when the human at the helm is missing, if no one owns the outcome, no platform's going to save you. So basically, vibe coding was the practice in terms of the shift that we're seeing. Agentic engineering is the architecture. So you become the architect. It manages all the orchestration and the coding. You are providing judgment, oversight, and ownership. That's the leverage. And it's no longer about software. AI isn't a tool you adopt. It's the architecture that you are designing. So Q&A. I tried to go through that as deeply as I could, and happy to answer any questions. Andrea?
Yeah, thanks so much, Barry. That was an excellent overview. Really appreciate it. I'm a very new Vibe coder, and I had a question for you. You mentioned project folders connected to Lovable, so I just discovered them in Claude. Like if I start a project, I can have a folder with all relevant documents. How do you do that on Lovable, or can you do that on Lovable?
Yeah, you totally can. If you got a bunch of folders, just zip them up, drag the zip folder over into it, and then it'll add it into it. Yeah, super easy. Rob?
Yeah, I was just curious. A neighbor across the way is a developer, and I asked him if he was worried about his job. But he says where AI can really fall apart is in scalability. So, like, I get if you're building the 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 demo or the original idea, trying to get that formulated, and it sounds like if this is going to be a serious database with a lot of users and whatever, then the replit seems to be the better way to go because you can then actually move it. You could actually, if I understood you correctly, it could actually build an independent database that could then go on like an SQL server.
So in that instance, so here's what I'd say. I'll start with that instance, then I'll work back. In that instance, what I would probably be doing is I'd go to VS Studio or I'd go to Cursor and I'd be incorporating Codex or Claude Code, likely a variety of multiple, and use it where you're then working with somebody like your neighbor, which is why when students ask me, is computer science dead? I'm like, no, it's still very much needed. Because you're going to need to have people that understand how to engineer it, how to validate it, how to visually make sure that you're validating the code, et cetera, et cetera. The difference is going to be the speed that you're going to be able to code. So like Stephen, one of the co-leads with the Toronto chapter, he was telling me what normally would have taken him 2 to 3 months, he was able to do on his own in 2 weeks. But you still need to have those individuals who understand that side. So for large scale projects, I would never ever leave it to AI on its own. Now, I'll take the step back. Usually what will end up happening is the product managers or the ideators of the project, it'll be better and faster and easier where you can use Lovable or Replit, build out the MVP, get it to where you want, then bring it to somebody like your neighbor and say, this is what I want. Or use it to test. And in the same way, back in the day, we used to do heuristic testing, where I'd either take linears, put them on a wall, and ask people literally with a linear drawing and say, point out how you would go through this, and we'd use that to understand how to build it and remove a lot of natural errors. Or later, then they would use things, whether it was Figma or all sorts of different tools to do the same thing. This is now where you can actually build a working prototype, see how people are using it, then adjust when you do the full rebuild from scratch properly. Not that that isn't properly, but you're going to be able to go significantly deeper.
Yeah, when you have a real prototype to generate interest and raise capital, all that other stuff too. So that's
like back in the day when it would cost you hundreds of thousands or more to build an MVP and then you want to present it to investors or whomever, you can now actually go through, you can get 100 people that are in the market, you can test it, you can prototype it, you can fix it, you can adapt it, you can figure out, is what I thought was part of the market, the features, etc., the real ones? Well, now what you're going to be able to do is to take all of those, validate, edit, change, improve, and now you're going to be able to go to market significantly faster. And the advantage is some programmers are awesome creatively. That's not the majority from my experience. So being able to lead, Lori's laughing, to be able to lead, no, it's true. But so to be able to lead so you can get the look, the feel, the UI, the UX, to understand, because the time it takes you to try to communicate that to a programmer. Now, but this is why you then need the programmer. You're not going to understand the difficulty on the back end of setting up. So if you're able to be far more clear than, no, I need it to be more fluid. Well, what the hell are you supposed to do with that?
Right, right.
You're going to be able to then sit down, put it together in a way that then by the time you get it to the programmer, they don't need to guess what you were thinking in your head because you've worked that part out. They then can build off of it now that they've got what you believe is going to be the correct starting point and what the market has indicated needed to get fixed. So the time from A to Z becomes truncated through each iteration considerably. And that's
Yeah.
why, depending on what you want, Lovable, you want to do a weekend build, test it for 3 weeks, and then bring it to somebody, you can do that. If you need a bit longer, because it's a bit more complicated, like for me, find my brand DNA, start off on Replit, do the same thing. But would I trust Replit if I were to commercialize, find my brand DNA, and all of a sudden 100,000 businesses wanted to be on it? I sure as hell am not going to still be on Replit. But
Yeah.
will it help me get there? Absolutely.
Right.
Does that help answer that?
No, that's perfect. That's perfect. And I love I don't even know the math that would be like from 2 weeks to versus 3 months. That's incredible. In terms of ideation, that's unbelievable.
It's the speed and what you're able to do, and there's no level. Like if any of you go on to the AIfellowship.ca, I built a chatbot out just because I was thinking I should be able to do that, and
Wow.
literally created a customized chatbot. So that entire chatbot that you'll see on the AI Fellowship was built in Lovable and set up based on Markdown files where I had Claude research the history of the GTA. So you can also ask it to give you interesting historical facts of Toronto or Scarborough or wherever, and it will do that just as a little bit of an Easter egg. But then I also set it up so if somebody were basically bad mouthing the AI collective or other partner organizations to us, it would respond the way that we needed it to respond, which is, hey, anybody in the ecosystem is welcome and we want to support them kind of message. So that entirely got built within the system also.
Very cool. Very cool. Thanks.
Yeah, no problem. Any other questions as we're winding down here? Oh, Munish, it looks like you're talking, but you're on.
Yeah, sorry. So Barry, I am in Toronto, and I am like I am a developer, and I am masters in AI as well, working as a delivery manager. But recently, I got a layoff.
I'm sorry.
What can you suggest? So I believe I am I understand development and I can do development. I have done it in my previous previous start of my life career. So what else you're thinking? Like, okay, I understand Replit and Lovable are fine, but what should be my way forward for like I have built an application. Now I do not know how to move forward. Any ideas?
I'll open this up to the rest of the group as well, because again, it's a fellowship. One thing that we're working on is I'm thinking September, we're going to be doing a careers and job fair that we're hoping to organize for exactly this reason. It's to help people understand how to connect and to bring people forward. So just as a side note, individually, I'm sorry to hear that, and I think our ecosystem can be very, very difficult. I think being present in things like this and doing some networking, I'd get out there. We're also going to be doing a social event. I haven't announced that, but in June we didn't have too many live events, so I'm going to be doing something at a local bar as a social gathering just for people to show up. Pay your own tab, but the whole thing is to get people together. And it's going to be, the theme is down but not out, because whether you're a founder or you're in the situation that you're in, this is a stumble. This is not a fall, and so we want to be able to support each other from that standpoint. Individually, my recommendation would be reaching out and making as many coffee connections as you can, and offer to show what you're able to do. And as much as I hate saying, I don't want to say, oh, work for free or whatever, but sit down and offer, look, let me show what I can do in a week. And if it has value for you, then this is what I'd like as an outcome, kind of thing. Because at least then you've got some things that you can show the next person if it doesn't work out, and if it does work out. But thoughts from the group?
If there is any founder or any startup idea, I am open for it. Like I am quite hands-on. So I am masters in AI, so I can build very, very innovative ideas.
Great.
Well, one thought just also is one of the things that I've been thinking about, and I haven't mentioned to the leadership team yet, is creating a bit of a jobs board on AI fellowship. And maybe that can be an actual working example where instead of it being where I'm showing you the overview, we can set up one, and literally the entire collective of the fellowship, we can in real time build a job board and then use that, and at least there's something that can be a next action item. Maybe in one way that could lead to a positive result. So what I'll do is I'll action that as maybe something that we can do in July as a webinar and say we're going to build a job board. If you're looking for a job or you're looking to hire, join it, and we're going to vibe code it in real time. That way we can show people how to do vibe coding and have a net result at the end of it that's going to hopefully benefit the group. So we'll use that at least as one takeaway that hopefully will be positive. Cassie?
Thanks.
Yeah. Barry, I just wanted to add for Munish, I've put a link in there for beready.ai. It's not a job board, but what it is, it's a matching platform. So you could still upload your resume, but the idea is that a lot of companies actually are having trouble finding good people. So what this does is it allows a mechanism that matches the right person with the right company. And because a lot of those companies are also not going to Indeed, they're not going to LinkedIn anymore because they're just not finding the right matches. So this is another way to do it.
And
Oh, thank you.
People are asking for you to put your LinkedIn in the comments, so throw that in there, Manish.
That's a good idea. Yeah.
And by the way, also on our member section for the AI Fellowship, everybody's LinkedIn should also be there. So if there's somebody that you're seeing on this, you should also be able to reach out to them directly and just say, hey, I see that you're in the fellowship. Can we connect? Okay, there we go. Any other questions just in the last minute? Okay,
One more
Just
question.
just one, Barry, if I could.
Yeah.
By the way, that was a great session. Super helpful. I haven't used Lovable ever, so it was a really great A to Z. Have you ever tried using Lovable where there's a totally different backend setup, so not what they kind of come with? Does it work well in that kind of context?
No, Replit will work better on that. Lovable's very contained.
Yeah.
Lovable's like an easy. Think of Lovable. It's like those meal boxes. Everything shows up, but that's what you get.
Okay, so then Replit's probably where what I ended up doing is we're building our own agentic CRM and pipeline, but natively it's being built to be headless. There's a backend, there's a bunch of persistent agents running around that interact with the team, and there's no fixed website, UI, or interface. It's all conversational, and through tool calls, the agent will pull up what you need or take your input or take the output.
Well,
but we're getting to the point where probably later this month, I'll start building out something fixed because some people will prefer that. So I'm just trying to figure out what the right tool is.
So knowing that you've got an exceptionally strong tech team, obviously, I'd probably use Replit to do the rapid MVP and then take the learning, and then your team can probably then jump into VS Studio with Codex and Claude and then actually do a full deployment based on your learning would probably be the best step. I'd skip Lovable for what you're looking at, though.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. How was it? Just oh, other raised hands. Who's raising their hands there? Who? I'm trying to see who. Oh, JD. Forgive me if I'm mispronouncing your name, by the way.
No, that's perfect. Jaideep is the right pronunciation. I think for the gentleman who raised a concern in the last part, I think you might want to look at something like LangChain or LangGraph, where you could just use API calls to access your LLM models. But yeah, thank you, Barry, for this wonderful session. For everyone here, my name is Jaideep. I'm a recent grad. I've used almost every AI tool there is, and I love using AI. I build random projects every single week. I post on my LinkedIn and GitHub. I'm currently working at a startup, and I really enjoy my work. And yeah, I just love the way you explained everything, Barry. Very simple. It could be a little intimidating for a lot of people. So in case you want to discuss more, you can reach out, and I'd love to help you out. And yeah, I came here primarily to network and meet some cool people. Thank you.
Well, and on that, I'm gonna share out. I'm planning on before the end of the week. I want to hit up a pub and just ask them, what is your slowest night? And if we had 30 people show up, and then in about 2 weeks, I'm gonna then I'll send out a notice, and we're just gonna treat it as a social for people to exchange and kind of get together. So stay tuned for that. And on that note too, if it makes sense, we do, well, not even if it makes sense, we have a forum. I think one of the things, if everybody starts using the forum on the AI Fellowship, that could be a place where everybody could start to exchange and use that as a little bit of a WhatsApp. And for those of you, if you go to the aifellowship.com, there's a global Discord and a global WhatsApp. So just register using your LinkedIn so that you've got access to the global team. So Madrid is about to launch, but I think that the fellowship globally is really starting to get some really awesome momentum. So again, I think it's exactly that, whether it's Manish, whether it's JD, all of us, the ability to kind of network through that is going to be, I think, really, really critical. But it's not just Toronto. You are going to have access to the global chapters as well. And I can't tell you how many people I connected with when I saw that they were involved. And all I did in my LinkedIn was said, connecting with a fellow with the second fellow capitalized. And suddenly they were like, hey, let's talk. So there's lots of opportunities to just network within the full fellowship. I'll be following up with everyone, and again, it is a global community, and it's your community. So, and if anybody wants to see something or wants some changes or thinks there's improvements, including this presentation, very, very happy, very willing to make changes. And for some of the next, just to kind of super quickly go through. So I will share just a couple of things. The prompt engineering workshop's actually going to get shifted into July. Hesse is going to be doing this amazing virtual on June 12th. Hesse, if you're still there, do you want to give a top line? Because this is unreal what you've got going on there.
Yeah, thanks, Barry. So this is a discussion I have with Margaret Mitchell, and she was one of the she is one of the original, like I said, AI ethicists. And then she talks about this idea of stochastic parroting, which really means that current LLM models are pattern matching, and they are really about predicting next token. There is this overriding impression that current general purpose systems understand people, their thinking, their feeling, they're like best friends. She's going to dispel that myth.
So if you haven't RSVP'd, it's a virtual event. Do it, and do it if for no other reason than when somebody asks you, "Oh, what are you doing today?" You're going to be able to say stochastic parrots and the question machine intelligence. So for that reason alone, you got RSVP.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Have an awesome weekend, and thank you all for joining today.